So what if, like, your body could actually talk back, tell you exactly what it thinks about that extra slice of pizza or, skipping the gym?
It's a fun thought experiment, isn't it? And that's pretty much the premise of the piece we're diving into today. It's called The Organs Had a Meeting, What Your Body Wishes It Could Say.
This piece from the Torchbearer, published May 10th, 2025. It's described as a gripping and comical cartoon story.
Exactly. It imagines this big conference call, basically, with all your organs getting together to hash things out about, well, your lifestyle choices.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So we're going to unpack what went down at this meeting. What were the big complaints, the demands, and did they actually agree on anything?
That's the plan. We'll explore their concerns and this life-saving resolution they came up with. The real mission here is to get at the core message about well-being hidden in this pretty unique narrative.
So who actually got an invite to this internal summit? Was it just the big guys like the heart and brain?
Oh, no, it sounds like a full house. The brain was apparently chairing the meeting, keeping order.
Makes sense.
And the heart was seconding motions, with the tongue acting as the coordinator, which, well, that also kind of figures, doesn't it?
Yeah, the tongue often coordinates what goes in.
Precisely. But yeah, the guest list was extensive. Eyes, hands, legs, skin, the sexual organs, liver, kidneys, pancreas, gallbladder.
Wow, okay. Keep going.
Stomach, esophagus, colon, rectum. Then you've got the bones, tendons, cartilages, ligaments, blood vessels, lymph system.
Seriously, everyone.
Pretty much. Ears, nose, mouth, lungs, tonsils, muscles. The whole crew was there. A real internal parliament, as you said earlier.
So the point was to figure out a way forward
Mm-hmm.
for, total well-being and safety.
That seems to be the idea. Reaching some kind of consensus on how the whole system could progress, safely and healthily. It highlights that interconnectedness, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, so kick things off. Any juicy demands right out of the gate?
Well, apparently the eyes were quite demanding. They wanted freedom, complete freedom.
Freedom to do what?
To see, well, everything. The text mentions secret places, nudities, and forbidden activities. Their defense was essentially, hey, we're just looking.
Just passive observers? I can see how that might not fly with everyone else.
Exactly. The heart and mind immediately chimed in with some serious concerns. They worried about, disgrace, losing trust in relationships, objectification.
Making it harder to form real connections.
Precisely. That genuine connection becomes almost impossible, they argued. It really gets you thinking about the impact of what we choose to look at.
The story gave examples too, right? Something about the heart.
Yeah, apparently the heart almost got tangled up emotion with someone else's spouse because of where the eyes were looking.
Oof. Been there. Metaphorically speaking, of course.
And the legs apparently nearly caused a fall because the eyes were distracted by something illicit. It shows how these small visual choices can have bigger physical consequences.
Definitely. Okay, so after the eyes stated their case, who was next?
Was it the tongue?
You guessed it. The tongue stepped up, basically advocating for total indulgence.
Let me guess. Sugary foods, fatty stuff.
All of that. Sugary, fatty foods, alcohol, exotic spices, food additives. It even mentioned risque sexual practices like cunnilingus, wanting no restrictions whatsoever.
Huh.
The argument was basically YOLO, right? Live life to the fullest.
A very common sentiment, but I bet the internal organs had a different perspective.
Oh, absolutely. The kidneys, colon, and stomach were apparently horrified. They immediately brought up the risk of ulcers, cancers, all those long-term digestive problems.
Yeah, the fun stuff.
And the pancreas shared what the story calls a heartbreaking tale of diabetes. Needles, numb feet, potential blindness. It painted a really grim picture.
That's powerful, giving the organ itself a voice to describe the suffering.
It really is. The liver mentioned feeling weakened, and even the bones piped up, asking why the tongue's brief pleasure should jeopardize the whole structure.
It's a fair question. What were the predicted consequences? Well, beyond the obvious, diabetes and kidney failure, they foresaw things like hypertension, awkward social situations, bullying maybe because of obesity or dental decay, and just generally low self-esteem. It connects the dots between indulgence and, well, a whole host of negative outcomes.
Okay, so eyes, tongue.
Yeah.
What are the ears? What do they want?
The ears apparently wanted a nonstop feed of, well, noise, gossip, scandal, flattery, provocative whispers, musical debauchery, and seductive lies.
So constant stimulation, basically. Drama and intrigue.
Seems like it. Maybe a desire to feel included or important, But the brain, heart, and lungs immediately flag the downsides.
Like anxiety and stress.
Exactly. Increased anxiety, chronic stress, even panic attacks and breathlessness from being constantly agitated by this influx of information, much of it negative.
Makes you think about our current media environment, doesn't it?
It really does. And they gave an example. False gossip leading directly to fear, panic, hatred in the heart, and a measurable spike in blood pressure. It shows that direct physical link between what we hear and how our body reacts.
Wow. Okay, moving on. The hands, what do they demand? Power, money.
Pretty much. Freedom to grasp money, pleasure, power, with no moral or legal limits. Oh, and more rest time.
Ah, cheeky. What was the pushback?
Well, the heart immediately thought, jail time. Practical.
Good point.
The wrists and tendons chimed in too, reminding the hands about arthritis, swollen joints, fractures, the physical toll of overuse or perhaps misuse.
In the brain.
The brain brought up the bigger picture: broken families, betrayed friends, lost trust, imprisonment, social disgrace, the whole web of consequences.
And didn't the skin say something too?
Yeah, that was interesting. The skin apparently observed that when the hands did get free time, it often led to criminal activities, sort of an idle hands situation.
Right, reinforces that ripple effect idea. Okay,
Yeah.
What about the legs? Where do they want to go?
Everywhere, it seems, especially places they shouldn't. Forbidden zones, conflict areas, crime scenes, nightclubs, casinos, temptation dens. They wanted freedom to roam anywhere.
Sounds adventurous, but risky. What did the support structure think? The bones and joints.
They were understandably worried. The bones feared being shattered. The ankles and knees recounted past injuries, twisted ligaments, fractures, crippling pain.
Yeah, the price of adventure sometimes.
And there was a broader concern that the legs' recklessness could drag the whole body into situations it didn't want to be in, hadn't even considered. It's about, conscious movement versus just wandering into trouble.
Makes sense. All right, the skin. It already chimed in about the hands, but did it have its own desires?
Oh, yes. The skin wanted intense tactile experiences, everything from gentle caresses to fight bruises, also questionable tattoos and dangerous piercings. A real desire for sensation and maybe self-expression.
But with obvious risks, what was the internal feedback?
The lymph nodes immediately thought infections, inflammation, maybe even malignancies, clear health risks.
And the skin itself had regrets.
It did. It recalled past burns, infections from wounds that weren't cared for, skin cancers from too much sun. And interestingly, how tattoos and piercings, maybe done impulsively, sometimes ended up hurting career prospects or social standing down the line. Thinking ahead wasn't its strong suit, apparently.
A cautionary tale.
Yeah.
We're getting through the body here.
Yeah.
What about the sexual organs? Their demands must have been interesting.
The story describes them as bold assertions. They wanted libertine adventures, orgies, infidelity, emotionally detached experiments, basically unrestricted sexual freedom and novelty.
Right. And the internal organs. I imagine the kidneys and liver had thoughts.
They certainly did. Major concerns about STDs, antibiotic resistance, the practical health fallout.
Yeah.
The kidneys specifically mentioned UTIs, the nightmare of renal failure, dialysis, transplant risks.
Yeah.
Very serious stuff. And also the practical issue of potentially having more children than could be financially supported.
And the story mentioned objections from the rectum and anus, too.
Yes. Specifically referencing health problems and infections potentially linked to anal and same-sex practices, framed within the context of that specific narrative's perspective on hygiene and health. Of course, modern understanding emphasizes safe practices across the board.
Got it. What about the emotional side? Did the heart weigh in again?
It did, quite powerfully. It spoke about the devastation caused by unchecked passions and betrayals, shattered families, traumatized kids. The courts clogged with the fallout, the human cost.
That's heavy. So after all these organs air their grievances and desires, did the big bosses confess anything? The brain and heart?
Yes, quite candidly. The brain admitted to its own past desires: alcohol, marijuana, opioids, even things like adultery, seduction, dishonesty, pride.
Wow.
And it lamented the consequences: depression, brain fog, risk of dementia, chronic anxiety. The story explicitly linked substance abuse to severe mental health issues like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, too.
A real moment of self-awareness from the command center.
Yeah.
And the heart.
Similar honesty. The heart confessed to chasing fleeting romances, infatuations, forbidden passions, and acknowledged the resulting heartache, betrayal, sometimes even violence, broken homes, lasting emotional scars. It was a joint admission of past failings, really.
That must have opened the floodgates for the other internal organs.
It really did. Suddenly you hear from the liver talking about cirrhosis, hepatitis, fatty liver disease, the lungs crying out about cancer risk, the stomach and colon complaining about chronic acid reflux, inflammation, cancers. All their long-term suffering came pouring out.
Years of silent protest finally voiced.
Exactly. And the heart then asks that key question. Is any temporary pleasure worth all this chronic sorrow, early death, and as the text puts it, spiritual destruction?
A central question for the whole meeting, really.
Absolutely. Then the blood vessels warned about hypertension, aneurysms, strokes. The bones groaned about fractures, arthritis, immobility. The lungs pleaded for restraint from smoking and inhaling harmful stuff. It was a full-on intervention.
So, faced with this overwhelming testimony of suffering, what did the brain propose? How did they resolve this?
Well, the brain, seemingly moved by it all, proposed a path forward. A resolution guided by, and these are the story's terms, divine law, specifically mentioning the Ten Commandments combined with natural health principles. The goal was protecting life.
Okay, so a blend of moral guidelines and practical health advice.
That's right. And this led to the formal adoption of the New START initiative.
New START, is that an acronym?
It is nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, air, rest, Sabbath, and trust in God.
I see. A comprehensive lifestyle plan.
Very much so. It covers physical health, moderation, rest, and even a spiritual dimension with trust and the Sabbath concept. The core agreement was for every part to be mindful of how its actions affect the whole body.
A commitment to interconnectedness and shared responsibility.
Exactly. No more silos, thinking about the collective well-being.
And how did the meeting end? Did everyone agree?
According to the story, yes. The assembly dispersed peacefully, united in this goal of preserving the body's life and dignity. Harmony and wisdom prevailed.
Promising health, longevity, peace, and spiritual fulfillment. Quite an outcome.
A very positive, maybe slightly idealistic conclusion, but it drives home the message. This whole imaginative meeting really hammers home how deeply connected our choices are to our overall well-being, physical, emotional, even spiritual.
Yeah, what really struck me was that collective outcry from the internal organs. It just makes those long-term consequences feel so much more real and visceral. You know, it's not just abstract health warnings. It's presented as actual suffering.
Absolutely. It definitely makes you pause and think, doesn't it? You have to consider how those demands from the eyes or the tongue or the hands might resonate with your own impulses, your own daily choices.
For sure. It's a fascinating way to frame it. This story really pushes you to think about those foundational principles, whether you call them divine health principles or natural laws or just common sense.
Yeah.
Are they a path to a more, harmonious life?
And it prompts that bigger question. What does well-being truly encompass for you? Is it just not being sick? Or is it something more profound, more integrated, encompassing peace and fulfillment too? Something to definitely chew on.